Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Darsha.
And I'm Dr. Altamash Raja.
And welcome to Medicine Redefined,
a podcast where we will explore the often overlooked but necessary components of health, what we consider to be the fundamentals.
We will investigate topics and practices that can give you and your patients the best chance to optimize a healthy lifestyle. It's time to move the needle forward and put the health back in healthcare. Hey everyone, Happy New Year. Welcome back to Medicine Redefined. We're super excited that you're here to kick off the new year with our first episode. And for this episode, we have an awesome guest. His name is Dr. Colin Zhu, and he's a board-certified physician in family practice and osteopathic manipulative therapy and lifestyle medicine. Passionate about the intersection of medicine, food, and nutrition, Dr. Zhu trained as a chef and a health coach at the Natural Gourmet Institute for Health and Culinary Arts and the Institute for Integrative Nutrition following completion of his medical degree. To share his unique blend of medical knowledge with a wider audience, Dr. Zhu launched the Chef Doc in 2017, an online wellness and lifestyle education platform which has been featured in several publications. Dr. Zhu is an international speaker, the author of Thrive Medicine, How to Cultivate Your Desires and Elevate Your Life, and is the podcast host of Thrive Bites, in which he interviews the latest health and wellness experts about incorporating a plant-powered lifestyle, enhancing emotional wellness, and creating a thriving mindset. His latest venture is his signature event for 2021 is a self-educational masterclass series experience called the Thrive Formula, where he combines inspiration, education, and practical tools on how to thrive. Here you will learn the 5 to Thrive pillars. 1, food as medicine. 2, functional fitness. 3, relationships. 4, community. And last but not least, emotional resilience. Now, this was absolutely a pleasure to talk to Dr. Colin Zhu. You guys will enjoy this episode greatly. I mean, we discuss his love for the culinary arts, how he got into cooking, why he decided to transition to going plant-based for the last 6 years. We discuss his book and even his own personal journey as he has traveled the world, and he's got some pretty cool stories. So enjoy my conversation with Dr. Colin Zhu. All right, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Medicine Redefined. Here across the screen, I got none other than Dr. Colin Zhu. And interestingly, how I kind of came across you. So you know Dr. Heather Hammerstedt. I saw her, or you were on her podcast originally, and she was a guest on ours way back, probably a year ago, episode 4 or 5. So that's how I kind of heard about you. And then as I was doing rounds with my program director, I was talking about my podcast, and she said, "Oh, lifestyle medicine. You know, I had a med school friend, have a med school friend that does that." I was like, "Oh, who is that? What's his name? Maybe we can bring him on." She said your name, and I was like, "I know who that is, and we're gonna make it happen." And here you are. So, how are you?
Mm-hmm. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on. Privileged to be here and to be able to share my story. And definitely shout out to Dr. Natasha. So her and I go way back. So
that's awesome. So I want to start this episode because you have a unique journey, I believe. And I know your mom had a pretty big influence in terms of what you do now. What kind of role does she play for you?
I think she played the foundational role. For those that don't know, she's a traditional Chinese medical doc, and she's an immigrant. I'm a first generation, immigrant American or child. And pretty much we didn't come from, my family, we didn't come from a long line of MDs. So having been, kind of raised under her, she really taught me to look at, the world in a very holistic and whole person approach, especially towards medicine. And she's definitely contributed towards that. Interestingly enough, I've always been interested in the human body, the mechanics of it, the body mechanics, a dynamic, flow of the human body. And I actually wanted to become a chiropractor first. And long story short, I just ended up going to medical school and wanting to combine East and West. And, through my schooling and training, and I'm sure you're going to ask me this later, that's how I took a lot of detours and ultimately ended up in lifestyle medicine, culinary medicine. And interestingly enough, I actually was going to pursue PM&R before I actually got trained in family medicine. So
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, you are known as the chef doc. So when did you start cooking? Did you always have an interest in it?
Both my parents cooked, lucky enough, and so I was very comfortable in and out of the kitchen. Learning, if you can call them recipes. Mom just literally she's never followed the recipe, and she's more of a let's wing it, let's throw stuff together. Let's look at the fridge and see what we have left over and create a meal out of it. And I've always loved that approach. My dad doesn't follow a recipe either, except he is more of the lane of let's just stick with Chinese cuisine. And, I'd rather not dabble in anything else. And that's where my mom helped me to explore others, because she really cared about us, relishing, growing up as an American, and all the different cuisines and foods that we're exposed to. So.
That's amazing. So what inspired you then to kind of combine both of them in your practice, right? So you went to the Natural Gourmet Institute. How was that experience?
That experience was great. That happened after I finished medical school. So I went to an osteopathic school, and again, the same thing with just being very just in love with the human body. And then I stayed back for a year, taught as a teaching assistant. So I graduated after 5 years. So that kind of put me off cycle. So I had pretty much 9 to 10 months to play around with. And I asked myself, what am I going to do? Most people would, take some time off, go on vacation, bulk up their resume, do some research.
Sure.
And I decided to do, something different. And during that time of school, everything is mostly focused, on pathophysiology, pharmacology, and that was pretty much the bulk of it, right? And a lot of it wasn't really concentrated on nutritional, preventative care, wellness, lifestyle, and anything like that. Back in my day, I'd probably say up to like maybe, being generous, up to like 25%. Most of the surveys would show would actually require a nutritional class. My experience was like 10 credits of nutrition. That was mainly biochemistry. So basically nothing. And so what inspired me was really every patient that we followed, shadowed, and treated, no matter what walked through our doors, had some sort of chronic lifestyle-related component to it, a risk factor, things like that. And having gone to school, and all the subsequent clerkships and rotations thereafter, I realized that we just wasn't taught enough. Severely ill prepared, and thus, started my journey of detours, basically. And so that's why I decided to immerse myself into culinary school, because I felt like it wasn't just enough to learn about nutrition. I think that was just brushing the surface level.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just to touch on some points you said there, right? So medical school, I think the most recent statistic shows that we get less than 24 hours a total of nutrition. And that nutrition, like you said, is biochemistry, right? Learning about the biochemistry of carbohydrates, proteins, fats, mainly fatty acids, if we're lucky. And then you're right about, I think 90% of issues in the medical system are chronic disease, right? Which can obviously be prevented if we've learned to eat healthy, as a child, and kind of bring that with us. And I'm truly inspired by your generation of lifestyle medicine doctors, because I feel like you guys didn't have as much avenues to go through. I mean, for me, I can talk to people like you now. There's Beth Frades, who we've had on the podcast. There's College of Lifestyle Medicine. We get board certified in it. But how did you think about how you were going to incorporate this into your practice? Or was it something that you were just passionate about that you said, hey, if it works, it kind of works?
Well, like you said, to add on what you said, definitely this generation is definitely more blessed than I was. We had to kind of find the tools, and, we had to find the tools. And then I was from the generation where you have to find the tools, and then not having a structure or an infrastructure for actual clinical practice or any type of model that's very, let's just say very good to, use. You have to create it, in a way. So lifestyle medicine was kind of, the last thing that I came upon that I felt really resonated with me. I followed literally everyone else before, coming upon lifestyle medicine. You name it, I probably, shadowed or followed a mentor in it. And that ranged from integrative medicine to functional medicine to naturopathic medicine to, everything, and when I finally arrived to lifestyle medicine, this was around 2013. And I was probably a first year or a second year during as a family resident. Okay. And that was when I found the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. During that time, it wasn't as big as it is now. Every single year since, because it actually started back in around 2003, every year since, it's been exponentially growing. And so I was lucky enough to kind of be involved with, we actually created the first professionals in training board, during that time with me and a couple other colleagues. My journey started there. I felt like it was home professionally for me. It was, definitely my tribe, and it just made a lot of sense. And then there's, not to mention a mountain loads of scientific, research that comes along with it. So.
Oh yeah. And to talk about that scientific research, a great segue here. I want to know how you talk about lifestyle medicine with your patients, especially when it comes to nutrition. So I was just on an app called My Plate, right? It's similar to MyFitnessPal, where you can track the calories. And I came across a message board actually where people can write down, their issues. I'm trying to lose weight. I'm trying to gain weight. This is what I'm doing with cardio, et cetera, et cetera. And when you click on these messages, it's very interesting. A lot of these people are so focused on the nuance, calorie tracking to, should I do keto? How much should I fast? And they seem to get away from the basics. How do you approach those topics with your patients?
That's a good question. So, before what I'm doing now, I have my own private practice in lifestyle medicine now, and it's all telehealth based.
Okay.
Before that, when I was in family medicine and working as a primary care, I pretty much saw everyone under the sun, so I could talk to someone that was an extreme carnivore to an extreme vegan and everyone in between. And what I've learned from that was you kind of have to meet people where they're at and, not force anything, not, just, put on, your version of your experience with it. And, you just kind of see, where are they, and also where are they in terms of the 5 stages of, behavioral change and, things like that. And just kind of see where they're at, how do they view the world of food, lifestyle, nutrition? That gives you a little bit of more of an insight to, how they approach it themselves. I like to look at, how they go around in the kitchen, whether they're in the kitchen or not. What was it like, growing up? Do they cook by themselves? Do they not? Do they cook with others? Do they not? How much do they eat out, et cetera, et cetera. And then once I get that kind of information, I pretty much like to know, what overall, this is putting on my coaching hat because, I also did more work as, got certified as a health coach. And its approach is very different than, a physician to patient type of relationship. So putting on my health coach, hat on, I would ask them, overall, what do you want to get out of this? I'm saying, what are your health goals? What are your health and wellness goals? What do you want at the end of the day? And depending on what they say, I will help them achieve that, right? Or at least be their advocate, their contribution partner, their cheerleader, whatever have you. And that is an ideal, in my opinion, that's an ideal way of approaching the patient. And then, I have a few resources. I rely heavily on, Michael Greger's Nutrition Facts organization. I rely heavily on Dr. Neil Bernard's PCRM, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine's resources. And it's just a plethora, the amount of work that these pioneers have already done, for us and before us, makes our, lives much easier, to be able to dispense this kind of information. There's no, you don't need to trip over anything, there's no haphazard thing. And, Dr. Greger has, his top categories for plant-based, Bernard has his, Power Plate, I believe it's called. And there's just endless amounts of resources. So the resources are there. The evidence is there. The bridge is really the practitioner, how much they're comfortable in themselves, right? Because if you look at the surveys, it's not only are we ill-prepared, that leads to the provider just not being as confident. But what's also interesting is that if you look at the surveys, even with Dr. Google and everyone searching, I think like at least up to like 80% of people have Googled, their health concerns or symptoms before walking into a door.
Sure.
They still rely on a physician or some sort of healthcare provider for their nutritional / lifestyle concerns or needs. So at the end of the day, you still have a very, very good foundation and point of contact for these patients to come to. It's really about you being prepared. And what I like about lifestyle medicine, just to finish it off, is it's a very role modeling, accountability type of profession. It's more powerful when you practice it yourself.
Right.
And, when you can lead by example, to me, there's no more powerful example, better than any type of, research or whatever. It's really about if you do it yourself, people will be more apt to follow you.
Oh, I couldn't agree more, right? It's like going to the gym and getting a personal trainer who doesn't look like a personal trainer. It's like, how would you be likely to follow that advice? But you touch on an important topic there, talking about physicians being prepared, to answer these questions. And it's similar to almost the medical marijuana question, where so many patients are coming to ask, but not many physicians are trained. But speaking about nutrition, how do you recommend physicians get comfortable with the topic?
In terms of what, like the education or the approach to, teach their patients?
Yeah, I think more about teaching the patient, right? If I'm coming to a doctor saying, hey, these are my health goals, how do I go about this? I've heard doctors just say, oh, you just need to eat less, right? And it's obviously not the right approach. Sure, it might be true, but it's not the right approach. So how do people, doctors at least, understand that?
I think it comes back to them as a provider, as a basic, right? Like, how well do you teach someone, right? I think back in residency, it's remember that see one, do one, teach one approach, right?
Yeah.
It's not as succinct like that. It's not as, because residency is about volume, right? It's about long hours. It's about, a lot of patients, a lot of clinical hours to be able to harden, yourself to be prepared. I don't think the way that we've learned or, reflexively taught, people under us would be used the same way. So if I was a provider watching this or, wanting to kind of up-level their education / teaching approach, I would look into like things like health coaching, life coaching, physician coaching. Like lifestyle medicine, there are a lot of great programs out there. Nowadays, a lot of great resources. And honestly, is it an entirely different approach than, how we did it, in medical school. And you don't need it to replace how you were trained. I think it is a great complement, supplement, to be able to approach someone, what I'm saying? And kind of look at it like this, like, how would you like someone to teach you? Do you like, time? Do you like time matters, right? The style, matters, how people, body's language approaches you, right? How you use your voice, using props or not, right? Like, you have to kind of figure out what kind of teacher you are at the end of the day. Yeah. Because if you look at it, right, what's the Latin definition of a doctor? To teach, right? So it's really about going back to the basics, right? And so before you can even answer that question, Darsh, it's really about, about teaching nutrition. It's really about, what kind of teacher are you?
Right.
And, you have to unconditionally unlearn how, you can't just sit there for 2 to 3 minutes, say, eat more, eat less, move more, and then done with that and be okay with it. If healthcare, unfortunately is, becoming more and more like hospitality, but if this was like a hotel, like a client, or customer would just walk out, what I'm saying?
Right.
So we have to pay better attention to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, patient satisfaction and patient experience go up with a doctor actually teaching, right? Whether it's drawing, the physiology or just handout, things like that, but making the patient feel empowered that they have control of what's going on. So totally agree with you on that. What have you felt like have been the biggest benefits that you've seen in your patients when they start to cook on their own?
I think that, like you said, being more empowered, so I think the pandemic is a good example where, in the beginning of the pandemic, everyone was relegated to going back to their homes, right? They can't go out. Everything is sequestered. Everything is shut down, closed down. And, they're left with, to their own devices. So it was a great opportunity for them to get reacquainted or get firstly acquainted to their own kitchens. And I tell them this, no matter where you are in the spectrum, whether you're a meat eater or a vegan or anyone in between, your health, for sure will get better just by cooking in the kitchen. And the reason why is because, you are using less processed stuff, processed ingredients, better quality, ingredients, and you're just, because what I tell my patients is that whenever you eat out, whenever you don't cook for yourself or eat within your own household, you're basically outsourcing your own food. And unlike alcohol and smoking, we can't survive without food, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to eat it. We have to eat every single day, theoretically speaking. And of course, you can go, for a few days without. But the point is that what goes into your food, right? Whereas a business outside of you, they're looking at the bottom line. Their job is not to look at your health. That's your job as a patient. It's not even the doctor's job. That's your job as a patient. And the doctor's job is to kind of support you in your healthcare plan, in your wellness plan. You know what I'm saying? They're there to support you. I think it's really about switching the narrative instead of putting everything on the doctor, because it's not their body, it's your body.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like I don't have hypertension, I don't have obesity, you do. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And a lot of lifestyle, a lot of lifestyle choices and all the lifestyle related, issues that we have is actually from a choice that you make every single day. You know what I'm saying? We have up to 35,000 thoughts a day, and a lot of it, goes around, what do we eat? What do we eat? Where do I go? How do I buy? How do I source? How do I cook? Do I cook with others? Do I not cook with others? So these decisions, we have to get into a practice of making better decisions for ourselves, because every single decision, every time you put something into your mouth, there's two things that are happening. You have to ask yourself, am I, feeding disease or am I feeding health? You know what I'm saying? So those are that's probably the best way to, tell your patients, if I had to teach one thing to them. So.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. And I can attest to the whole cooking. So I grew up just eating. I wasn't really a cook. I always felt like it was a chore. But my wife, great cook. And so we started buying Green Chef, which is a food system. They ship over veggies and things. You can make pretty healthy dishes out of them. And it's honestly meditative, I found, and it's interesting because in the mornings when I wake up, it actually shapes the way I look at what I'm going to do for breakfast, or if I'm going to fast for the day, or what I'm going to do for lunch, because I already know what's going in my meal essentially for dinner. And why ruin, that overall day with health? So it's very true. Like you say, if you know what's going in your food, I feel like you definitely feel more empowered. Not only that, me and my wife, I felt like have gotten closer, being in the kitchen together, understanding each other's strengths, and then getting new ideas from food, right? It's just like reading a book where you start to learn how the spices work. One of the things that Netflix show is that fat, acid, salt, heat, something like that. I'm mixing up the words, but just the science behind it, I think, is really cool with cooking. So,
oh yeah, for sure.
Right. It's fascinating. And I never knew how much was actually involved in it. But
to add on what you said, it is a very meditative, process. And it's one of my favorite activities alongside with traveling, is where, because we're very, we're in a world where, we're always in front of some screen. Unfortunately. And, what traveling did, as well as what cooking did for me, was that it allowed me to engage in all of my five senses. So I have to smell something. I have to taste something. I have to touch something. I have to see something, with cooking,
Right.
And I think with that kind of immersive experience, it lets you go back into reality. Sometimes, during this time where you have no idea of, what is a future for us as humanity as time goes on in the environment that we're in. I like to, as part of my own self-care, I like to, make sure that I have a good touch with reality, because, you can be, very one-sided with just staring at a screen all day long. So I
Hmm.
think when you pursue these types of avenues similar to like yoga or meditation or, whatever have you, when you're engaging in more than one sense,
Hmm.
I think would be better for you.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great point. I want to touch on your personal experience because I guess recently have become plant-based. Is that correct?
No, I've been plant-based since 2014. So it'll
Oh, okay.
be
So you've been some
going on
time. Okay.
almost, yeah, yeah.
And why the switch? What made you go plant-based?
Well, it was after the time that I completed my first marathon. So I've been doing triathlons, a lot of different foot races, running races since 2006. So pretty much at the end of my college year. And, I love being active. I've always been active, growing up. And, it was around that time where I started reading or listening to or watching, documentaries,
Hmm.
reading about, the literature and all that. And I decided to give it a try. The biggest thing for me, other people have different responses after they made the switch. For me, it was more subtle. I didn't battle with like major chronic issues.
Hmm.
My health has been, on point. It was for me, what I was battling with when I was training for my first marathon was a lot of joint pain. Sometimes, after a meal, depending on what I would eat, I get a lot of like bloatingness, things like that, GI upset. And, when I made the switch, I realized that my training and performance was better. Joint pains just kind of went away. I recovered faster. And I just stuck with it. And, being as a Chinese American, we pretty much ate, everything, but equally. The Chinese cuisine is done in a way where it's very much like yin and yang. We strive for harmony and balance, right?
Hmm.
So that also is tied into food. So there's always equal parts of like vegetables and meat and fish and, grains and things like that. So making the switch to plant-based wasn't that hard, and the Chinese are pretty good with, cooking up, more plant-based fare, you know what I'm saying? So it's
Yeah.
not just,
Yeah.
salads and potatoes and carrots and broccoli. So
Right. So when you say plant-based, have you eliminated all meat, or are you still incorporating some meat and just more, majority
no,
vegetables?
I've
Okay.
eliminated all meat.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Gotcha.
mhm.
So I've grown up as a vegetarian, just religious, but then, I'm pretty secular now, but I've never gone back, tried meat. So I really can't say the difference, but it's interesting. A lot of people that I've talked to when they go from carnivore to plant have noticed a difference. There are a few people out there, right? Paul Saladino and people who've gone the carnivore diet, but now have kind of treaded back the other way. But yeah, I think just the research that's coming out, game changers as documentaries that have come out to kind of influence people. It's very interesting. How much of the plant-based model do you recommend to your patients?
The way I teach is basically based on three words: just eat more plants.
Okay. Yeah.
And well, that's four words, but just basically eat more plants. And for me, it's everyone can afford to eat more plants. I think 97% of all Americans are deficient in fiber, which I think
Mhm.
is a essential nutrient that we don't really talk about. And we just have a lot of room for of improvement, right? And then also, I would teach them about that, and then also how, on a macroscopic level, how that affects Mother Nature, planet Earth, and climate change. So everything is connected, and as long as we can make that individual decision. So no matter where you are, whether you care about individually, whether you care about globally, I think there's going to be an effect. And for me, as a as a healthcare provider for my patients, it's about finding what works for them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And eating more plants. There's no downside to it. You can always
Right.
afford, to, and it just helps, on a larger scale, no matter what. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. You mentioned earlier about travel, so I know you're kind of a travel junkie. Is that correct?
Hmm.
It probably
Hmm.
sucks with
Much.
COVID, but we're all getting there.
Hmm. 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 Yeah.
You've written a book, Thrive Medicine. I mean, it's what your
Mhm.
podcast is based off of. And tell us about that book. What is it about?
So, book Thrive Medicine is pretty much how to elevate your life, how to cultivate, your inner desires. And for me, I've always felt really, really attached to the concept of thriving. I've read, the books of the Blue Zones,
Mhm.
Dan Buettner's, work. He has a few books out, and I really, what really hit it home for me was the very first book I read was um, No Opportunity Wasted by Phil Coogan. And I believe he's the host of The Amazing Race. I don't know if
Okay.
he still is, or, that was like his main thing. Anyway, he pretty much chronicles like amazing people from all kinds of walks of life. And what I love about that book was he demonstrated and conveyed stories of just very average people, but they are breaking the mold on what we kind of perceive. So when we get older, we just think about, oh, I'm just going to end up in a nursing home, or in a wheelchair or a rocking chair, and that's about it. And in this book, you have someone in their 90s. What is that? They're just they're water skiing basically,
Wow.
and they're just doing amazing things. And so that kind of led me to creating a life outside of the box, being
Yeah.
non-traditional, not to the point of being non-traditional, but I was following more of, just a path where it was meant for me and what made sense to me. So I didn't make a point to be non-traditional, atypical,
Hmm.
as a son, as an Asian American, as a physician, because everything I've done is very atypical. But
Sure.
that wasn't my point. My point was to live a very authentic life. And, humbly speaking, I've been able to travel to 35 countries. I've touched
Wow.
every continent on the planet. And, I've crossed paths with a lot of great people that normally I wouldn't, right? I would
Yeah.
sit at a bar and, talk to someone from the Netherlands, someone from New Zealand, and someone from Morocco at the same time.
Amazing.
And so whenever you have these conversations, a light bulb would come on, whether it's my light bulb or their light bulb. And I realized that, these stories were amazing, right? And I said to myself, I wanted to kind of capture these stories. And so that's what sparked the idea for the book. So the book is kind of like half memoir, half, self-empowerment,
Hmm.
and I really cared about the power of empowering someone else
Yeah.
through your own story, through sharing other people's stories, and through an action plan, like actually taking steps and implementing it. So there's action steps at the end of every chapter.
Cool.
There's lines for you to journal in.
Yeah.
And so, like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
a pretty cool book.
It's an immersive book, right? I love that, and I think hopefully it inspires a lot of people to travel. Because I mean, there's a problem in the United States, at least. Like, I don't even know what the stats are, but not many people even have their passports, right, to go out of the
Mhm,
country. And
mhm,
I've recently tuned in. I do a lot of meditation, but I recently went to Tulum for my honeymoon, and we did something called a temescal ceremony. So it's
mhm,
essentially this like globe that you like sit in, like a big igloo with 13 other strangers, and they close it. It's pitch black. They heat it up like a sauna or like a steam room, and it gets really hot in there. And they're banging music and you're chanting. And essentially, it's a very spiritual journey in a Mayan culture. And you're supposed to, go through the realm of death, and then you get reborn, you come back, you think about your childhood. And I came out of there just realizing how important connection is, not only to ourselves, not only to other people, but also just the world itself. Right. And I think that's what traveling does to you. Like you said, you're at a bar and it's surreal to almost think about that you can be halfway across the world, meeting people, understanding different
mhm,
languages or cultures. The amount of emotion that can come out of that is just something that's
mhm.
so fascinating.
Yeah.
What has been your favorite place to go? Favorite country? Do you have one?
Oh man, I've several, but for different reasons. Iceland, Belize,
Hmm.
Australia. Definitely Antarctica was a very surreal and
What did
mind
you do
blowing
there?
experience. Basically just observe, nature and Mother Nature.
Wow.
Just imagine, have you ever watched Jurassic Park?
Mm-hmm.
So imagine the first time you've watched Jurassic Park and, just being like awe-inspired by how, amazing and jaw-dropping, that could be, right? Now you picture that same feeling, right? And you go to, a part of, a place where very, 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 very few humans inhabit.
Yeah.
Right? There's no actual permanent resident that actually lives there.
Right.
Only people that are part of the military, scientists, researchers can go, and tourists, obviously. But you go there and imagine, a place where basically, humans don't really, have altered. They have no footprint there. You know what I'm saying? And you see Mother Nature just flourishing, right? So I would see, I don't have a picture to share, but I would have, I would be on one of the islands off of the peninsula, and I'll be able to see a sea of king penguins as far as my eye can see, and there's no end to it. It stretches all the way out to like literally the horizon. And it's just a bunch of king penguins, like, just making a lot of noise. And they're the coolest creatures on earth. They like stand like halfway up to your hip. They walk around like humans, and they don't care if you're there. They can give to whatever, they could really care less if you're there. And it's just amazing to watch, and then you kind of think about, how human society has been, up until this point. And you realize that, we have such a profound impact, but we also have a profound responsibility, whether we realize it or not. So it was definitely, traveling. I also am a certified scuba diver. So those two experiences have led me to witness climate change firsthand.
Yeah.
From like, the bleached coral reefs off of, the Great Barrier Reef to actually seeing like part of a glacier or a block of ice in Antarctica actually collapse, and, it's very, it's a very humbling experience. So.
Absolutely. I mean, I've seen at least firsthand in Alaska, you go to this huge glacier, one of the most famous, and you can just see it receding, and minute by minute, you just see the ice kind of fall. So like you said, we have a huge responsibility. Quick question though, how did you get to Antarctica? Do you have to take a ship? Is there a flight?
Yeah, you fly down to the southernmost point of Argentina. It's called Ushuaia, which is a very common point of a port that people do. Then they take a cruise liner. Usually it's an expedition ship, and you're with a tour group. You can only go by some sort of tour company. You can't go there by yourself. And we went, to the Antarctic Peninsula and two other, British territories. And
Wow, incredible. So, I mean, definitely on the bucket list. Me and my wife are always looking to travel. We're actually going to Austria next and trying to do Europe in the winter, which has kind of been something on my bucket list. So excited for that. But the reason I also brought up travel for you is, now that you've seen so many countries, you've seen how healthcare is different in other countries, especially when it comes to food. I mean, when you compare the East versus the West, US is definitely lagging with so many different things. I mean, we can talk about government and the education that the government provides to the US population. We can talk about food sourcing, right? And not having probably enough farmers markets, pricing maybe for foods even. What have you found to be the biggest issues, barriers in terms of here in the US when it comes to getting healthy food for your patients, the rest of the population?
So there's a number of things, and there's just, I think what it comes down to, it's really about capitalism. Okay. And that could be said about, if you think about, our healthcare model today, if you think about our food industry, and then you think about like us as consumers, like at the end of the day, who is the actual, like product at the end of the day, right? So in other countries that don't operate the way we do, there's less, I guess, pockets that, are more concentrating of filling, themselves, right? So I've had this discussion on with a good medical colleague of mine, and if we could get like kind of like how in medicine we have a grand rounds, right? If you
Yeah.
could have like one gigantic table, and have someone from the food industry, a restaurant association, someone from fast food chains, someone from the actual culinary world, someone from healthcare, someone from public health, like get all these major players under one table and actually talk about like the real issues
Hmm.
and create what I believe needs to happen, social responsibility, because
Right.
right now everyone is just operating for themselves,
Yeah.
right? The healthcare industry is operating for themselves, so there was a beautiful quote by I wish I remembered their name. I'm going to paraphrase, but
Nice.
the food industry, operates in a way where it doesn't, pay into mind, what is going on with health. And the health industry, operates in a way where it doesn't pay to mind about food, right? And so
Mhm.
there's a huge separate dichotomy, right?
Yeah.
And so, when people are not, when they're looking outwardly, and looking at the person to their left and looking at the person to their right, and know that they're going to have an effect, then it changes the conversation. You know what I'm saying? So I
Yeah.
think that if we can operate more from a social responsibility on how, we could, up level each other, still make a profit and still, benefit, each other. Because at the end of the day, we all live on the same planet, right?
Right. Yeah.
But our choices, whether you're conscious or not, is always going to be affecting, our planet. So, I think we need to have more of these players together to have a conversation, and we just need to do better. So other countries don't, to answer your question, other
Mhm.
countries don't operate as much of a capitalistic,
Right.
realm. So when you have less of that, then I think less of, the thought of needing to make more money
Right.
is decreased,
Yeah. The bottom line doesn't.
I mean, I'm not an economist, but I'm
Sure.
just, that's my view on it. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, hopefully we do kind of get more people up there. I know, EC Sinkowski, we've had her on recent episodes. She talks about this a lot as a nutritionist. The Netflix show Down to Earth that kind of highlights what other countries are doing in terms of water, food, just healthcare in general with Zach Efron and Dan Orlin. So hopefully there are people out there that are starting to recognize it and starting to push it out there and get people to kind of quote unquote be woke, for lack of a better word. Issues in healthcare, different kind of topic here, but I've heard you say on another podcast that it's like being in the kitchen because there's too many cooks in the kitchen. What did you exactly mean by that in terms of healthcare?
yeah, if you ever work in the restaurant industry, the important thing in the back of the kitchen, or back of the house, so to speak, is really about efficiency, right? So my shtick or my pet peeve as a provider, when I was working, more, in the healthcare system per se, was if things were not efficient, it's not good at the end of the day for the patient. For me, I always look at, the patient was my main, I guess, entity or thing that I cared about the most. Everything in between, I really don't care. So what that means is that, I'm also very cognizant that I'm only but one link in the bicycle chain, and you need all the links to be able to operate and run smoothly, right? So that includes, the front desk, the office manager, the practice manager, your medical assistant, your nurse, et cetera, right? So too many cooks in the kitchen, is talking about how there's so many people and so many entities in between the physician and the patient that at the end of the day, it serves no one else. It doesn't serve the patient.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't serve the physician, and it only serves the people in the middle. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah.
And so you have this really upside down hierarchy system where the people at the top don't have clinical experience or have much less clinical experience running the show and making the decisions, and the people that are actually administering the healthcare system, or the actual healthcare, are, I don't know what's the best way to say it. They're just following orders.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
think that, a lot of times, more so now than the predecessors that I shadowed, the old school grandfathered, physicians that I shadowed, we're, for lack of a better word, we're just pawns on a chessboard. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And when you do not wake up and realize that you're just a pawn, then you can't make better decisions for yourself to create the medicine, or at least practice in the way that you deem fit, as opposed to you're allowing someone else to run the show, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely well said. And I mean, I couldn't agree more. We're actually going to have a future guest on here, Dr. Peter Valenzuela. He was actually just on Z-Dog, but he's written a book called Doc Related, which really goes into the issues of healthcare, from honestly anything you name, from EMR to coding to kind of, having too many cooks in the kitchen. So excited to have that too. But it's a real issue, like you said. Cool. So what is next for you?
It's a good question. So as we are, I don't know when this recording will be out, but pretty much we are in the middle of December of 2021, and a lot of
January 3rd. You're going to be the first episode of 2022.
Oh, all right.
Kicking it off well.
But yeah, looking, yeah, I appreciate that. Looking out into the new year, I think going into new year, doing it with a little bit more humility and wisdom. Because I was just, in this boat going into 2021. And I think like the rest of us, we thought that 2021 was going to be different, and it's not. But knowing that, if we don't have that kind of mindset going into 2022, it would be better for us. So My point is that having, lesser or no expectations is probably best for you. Going into 2022, we are looking more to evolve the Chef Doc brand.
Okay.
I also have a podcast myself, so we're continuing with season 5 of Thrive Bites. Including more guests. I'm part of a team called Plant-Based Telehealth, and we are, setting ourselves to be the #1 lifestyle medicine, telehealth, platform in the country. So excited to be teaming up with them. And for me, it's spreading the word of the Thrive Formula, which is an online masterclass series, based off of thriving. So I call it, my Thrive, Thrive pillars. And it talks about food as medicine, functional fitness, resilience, community, and relationships. And I wanted to create something evergreen, and self-enduring, educational. I wanted to create something like this that I wish I had when I was in medical school.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much the impetus of this. It's just pushing that message, forward, and to continue to thrive myself and to be able to pass that on for other people.
I love that. Yeah. And we'll definitely link all of your socials and everything into the show notes. Do you do cooking classes at all?
I don't have a formalized cooking class, structure set up. I have been asked to do food demos, virtual demos.
Okay.
Since the pandemic, I've done, I publicly spoke and hold workshops and demonstrations, around the country before the pandemic. So now it's been, more virtual. I am planning on doing more, more on my YouTube. So more like cooking recipes and, just up-leveling that because just moved into a new place. So I have a brand new kitchen. Doing more with that. People can find me if they're looking, for a plant-based doc that practices lifestyle medicine. They can find me or any of my other teammates, depending on where you live, because state licenses matters. Where you are,
right.
And you can find me on all my socials, my website. Reach out to me. Tell me what's good in your life, what's not good, and how we can help you. Just thrive so you can help others in your life. So
yeah. Definitely. Let me ask you this, because you're going to be the first episode kicking off the new year. How do people get started with cooking? What's your number one advice for somebody who has no idea where to start?
Just start. Just start. Just start. Whether it's buying a brand new knife, you don't need much. I actually did a whole course on how to get started with whole food plant based. It's an audio course. It's like 1 hour long, and basically I break it down where. In terms of equipment, you don't start, you just start with a knife, start with a cutting board, and start with a silicone, spatula, and you're good to go. Appliances, you don't really need much. If you like to have help and delegating stuff, get a high powered blender, get a convection oven, or get a slow cooker would be, if you have the change to put into it, get one of those. But honestly, start somewhere, find a recipe, you could YouTube anything now. So, follow, something and have fun, experiment, cook with others, and just have fun with it. There is no limits. There's no right or wrong. Like, just go have fun, and you'd be surprised. You're going to learn a lot about yourself, because like for you, Darsh, with meditation, it's a very immersive experience. And to me, it's not a nice to have skill. It's a survival skill. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
and it's a survival skill that we need more of. So,
right. I'm going to make it a goal 2022 to at least learn about the science of cooking, because I know what gets me interested in things is understanding the mechanisms behind it. So that's going to be my goal for 2022. Before I ask you the last question, Dr. Zhu, I just want to say thank you so much again for coming on here. You are absolutely unique, and I think people will be able to tell by listening to this. And I hope more doctors, when they listen to this, more people, when they listen to this, understand that they themselves need to find those unique traits and that they can create value through that. And I think that is what you've done. And through empowering yourself, you're now empowering others. So super grateful to have you on here. So thank you. And
definitely my pleasure.
Yeah. Last question for you here that we ask all our guests is, how do we put the health back in healthcare?
I think it starts with you. I think it starts with, going along with what you said is about finding, who you are at the end of the day, going through that self journey of exploring what it means to be human, exploring what it means, to identify with yourself, whether it's, a name, whether it's, you have to start with, am I just my job? Am I just my work? Am I just my degree? And challenge yourself and, revisiting this question. And from there, when you have a deeper understanding of yourself, and subsequently, a purpose, a mission, what is the why to yourself, then you can have a better idea of how you want to show up in the world. You know what I'm saying? I had to take pretty much a decade, of really intensive introspective work personally and professionally to arrive to where I'm at, and everyone is unique. I would also say don't play the comparison game. You know what I'm saying? And that leads to imposter syndrome and not feeling like you're enough. Just throw all that out the window and just honestly, just show up, just start, just show up. And the first step to, 1,000 steps, 10,000 step journey is the first step. So I just say, just start.
Love it. Beautifully said. Thanks again, Dr. Sue.
No problem.
I think it's super awesome to see how Dr. Zhu took all of his talents, his unique individual brand, and kind of combined all of that together to create his own practice and lifestyle medicine brand. And even just talking to him, you got this sense of wonder and awe, and he's really trying to live life to the fullest. So that was definitely awesome to see. And for this week, I think our call to action is very simple, or at least clear, right? And I think it's learning to cook, learning to put your fingers on foods, understanding your kitchen, how to buy groceries, but getting in touch with what has been innate to humans all along. And that's cooking and preparing meals and understanding what goes into our mouths, because not only the health benefits, but I think there's also this obvious social benefit that we see, right? We just got done with the holidays, Christmas, New Year's, and maybe we had the opportunity to be with friends and family and cook some meals, and maybe we got those fleeting experiences that we don't always feel, but those are times of joy. And so why can't we just start to reconnect more, especially in times of COVID when there's more isolation? I think cooking is a great way to bring friends and family together. And so with that, our disclaimer: everything in this podcast is for educational purposes only. It does not constitute the practice of medicine, and we are not providing medical advice. No physician-patient relationship is formed, and anything discussed in this podcast does not represent the views of our employers. We recommend that you seek the guidance of your personal physician regarding any specific health-related issues. And with that, please make sure to subscribe if you haven't, share this podcast, leave a rating and a review, and we're gonna kick some ass in 2022. Y'all have a great, great, great new year.